Maddie slapped a 20 on the bar so hard the foam jumped in my glass. $20, she said. You get my sister on one date. One, that's the whole bet. I looked at the bill, then at her. Maddie grins the same way whether she's joking or ruining your life, so it's hard to plan around. Which sister, I said. You have one. Exactly, Tessa, corner table. Don't stare, you'll spook her. So naturally, I stared. My name is Vance. I'm 33 and I run the cellar at a brewery that smells like wet grain and hope. Cellarman. It's a real job. I move beer through tanks, I check gravity, I hose down floors at midnight while the last drunk argues with a jukebox. I've done it 9 years. I'm good at it. I'm also the guy who turns everything into a bit. You've met me. I'm the one at the party making the joke before anyone can decide whether they like me. If I say it first, it can't be used against me. That's the whole trick. Get the laugh, stay in motion, never stand still long enough for someone to look close and be disappointed by what they find. Nobody's ever called it a wound. It doesn't bleed. It just keeps everyone at exactly 1 arm's length, which is a distance I've measured very carefully over the years. Close enough that people call me their favorite guy at the bar. Far enough that not one of them could tell you a single true thing about me. That's not an accident. That's the architecture. You build a guy out of jokes, and nobody ever asks what's holding him up. Maddie's my best friend. Has been since she started tending bar here. She knows the bit better than anyone, which is why she thinks she can push me around, which she can. Why? I said. 'Cause Tessa needs to remember she's a person. She works 90 hours. She reads sad books alone. Somebody should make her laugh. Maddie pointed at me with the 20. You make people laugh. It's your one skill. I have several skills. Name 2 that aren't jokes. I drank my beer instead of answering, which she counted as a point. She's always counting points. It's a bartender thing. You keep score so you don't have to feel anything on a slow shift. You know she's gonna eat you alive, Maddie added cheerfully. That's kind of why I picked you. You bounce. Most guys crumble. She's got no patience for crumbling. That's a lovely thing to say about your friend. You're not my friend right now. You're my contestant. Do contestants get hazard pay? Contestants get $20 in a story. Go. She flicked her towel at me. Then quieter, because Maddie only ever means one thing per shift, and this was it. Just be decent to her, okay? She doesn't get a lot of decent. Make her laugh once and I'll die happy. I looked over at the corner table again. Tessa. I'd seen her maybe twice before, always in passing, always leaving. 36. Maddie once told me, older by 5 years and about 100 in wisdom. Charge nurse. The kind of job where people hand you the worst night of their life and expect you to fix it before your break. She sat alone with a beer she wasn't drinking and a book she was. That was the thing that caught me. Everybody in a bar performs a little, checks their phone so they don't look lonely, laughs slightly too loud at their table, angles toward the door like they've got somewhere better to be. Tessa did none of it. She wasn't waiting for anyone. She wasn't scanning the room. She had a paperback open against the edge of the table and the spine was cracked white in a dozen places, folded and refolded, so many times it looked less like a book and more like something she'd survived with. She turned a page. Didn't look up, the music didn't seem to reach her. I don't know how to explain what that did to me. I spend all night making sure people are watching. And here was a woman who had clearly decided, a long time ago, that she didn't need anyone to watch her at all. She's not gonna laugh at anything, I said. $20 says she doesn't. You said the bet was I get her on a date. The bet is you try. Maddie leaned in. I know you won't win. That's not the point. The point is you go over there and be a person for 4 minutes so my sister remembers the male species can string a sentence together. I should have said no. I want that on the record, for later, when this gets complicated. Some part of me knew, even then, that you don't send a guy with a script over to a woman who's stopped performing. It's a category error. It's bringing a card trick to a funeral. But Maddie was grinning, and the beer was cold, and being a person for 4 minutes sounded easier than admitting I couldn't. Fine, I said. Don't do the thing. What thing? The thing where you get scared and start doing crowd work. She hates crowd work. I don't do crowd work. You literally do nothing but crowd work. I stood up, straightened my shirt, which was a work shirt and did not straighten. I had a line ready. I always have a line ready. It's a good one. Low-key, self-aware, works about 80% of the time on people who want to be charmed. The problem, I'd learn in about 90 seconds, is that Tessa did not want to be charmed. She'd retired from wanting that. Charm was a currency she'd stopped accepting a while back, and I was walking over with pockets full of it, like an idiot who hadn't checked the exchange rate. I crossed the taproom slow and casual, doing the walk of a man who has definitely not been dared. Up close, she was more than the still thing I'd seen from the bar. She still had her hospital badge clipped to her jeans, flipped backward, but I could see the lanyard was worn soft at the edges. There was a coffee ring on the table she hadn't wiped and didn't care about. Reading glasses pushed up into her hair. She looked like a person who'd stopped decorating herself for anybody's approval. Around the same time she'd stopped answering the phone after 10. She didn't look up until I was standing right there, and even then she took her time, finishing her sentence first. She used her thumb to hold her place. A small thing. It told me she planned to get back to the book the second I was gone. "Hi," I said. Then the line. "You know, I've been standing at the bar trying to figure out what someone reads that's so good she'd rather be here than talk to anyone, had to come find out." It landed like a wet towel. She looked at me, and she wasn't even annoyed. That's what got me. If she'd been annoyed, I'd have had somewhere to go with it. Annoyed is a wall you can climb. Tessa just looked at me the way you look at a bus that's running late. She looked neutral, a little patient, a little tired. "You don't want to know what I'm reading," she said. "I might." "You don't. You want to weigh in, that's different." She turned the book face down, careful, keeping the page. "My sister sent you, Maddie. She's been trying to matchmake me since I was 19. She thinks I'm sad." "I'm not sad. I'm off work," which for her is the same thing. I opened my mouth. She kept going gently, like she was doing me a favor by getting it over with. "You came over here with something rehearsed. I could see you say it in your head before you said it out loud. And it's fine, it's a nice line, it probably works." She turned her water glass a slow quarter turn on the table. "But I've been up since 4 this morning holding a woman's hand while she found out her husband didn't make it. So I don't really have it in me tonight to pretend I'm the fun mystery girl in the corner. You seem nice. You're not what I'm looking for. Nobody is. That's not an insult, it's a schedule." She said all of it flat, no heat, just fact, laid down like a chart at the end of a shift. And that was supposed to be the moment I doubled down. That's how it works. She calls the bit. You make a bigger, better bit. You win her over with volume. I have 4 moves for exactly this situation. I've used all of them. They work. I could feel them lined up in my mouth. The little jokes, the false modesty, the pivot, where I make her the smart one so she'll relax and let me back in. I didn't use any of them. Because she was right. That was the thing. She'd read me clean off the shelf in one look. And there wasn't a joke on earth that would make that untrue. And for once I didn't want to prove there was. "Yeah," I said, "you got me. It was a dumb dare. Maddie put $20 on the bar and told me to get you to go out with me. And I said yes because I'm the kind of guy who says yes to a bet at a bar instead of thinking about how it lands on the other person." Tessa went still, not startled, recalculating the way she probably went still when a monarch started saying something she didn't like. I watched her decide whether I was worth the effort of being angry and land on no, which somehow felt worse. And better. At once. Anger would have meant I registered as a threat. This was quieter than that. This was a woman who'd been handed a lot of setups in her life and had gotten very fast at telling which ones came with a knife. "So that's real," I said. "You should know that. You called it and you were right. And the honest version is she's over there right now, watching to see if I fall on my face. I'm about to make sure she loses her money." Then I did the thing I absolutely was not supposed to do. I sat down. Not close. Across in the empty chair, the way you sit when you've stopped selling and you're just tired of standing. I put my hands flat on the table where she could see them. I don't know why. It felt like the right thing, showing her I wasn't holding anything. "You don't have to talk to me," I said. "I'll go tell her I struck out, which is true, and you can get back to whatever's cracking the spine of that book. I just didn't want to walk away doing another bit. Felt like you'd already had enough of those tonight." For a second, she didn't say anything. The book stayed face down under her hand. Somewhere behind me, the jukebox lost an argument. Maddie was pretending to dry a glass she'd already dried, watching us over it, and I knew without looking that her grin had gone confused, because this wasn't the show she'd bought a ticket to. Tessa studied me. Really looked, the way she'd looked at the bus. But something moved in it this time. Like I'd done something that didn't fit the chart she'd already filled out for me, and she was a person who took her charts seriously and didn't like being wrong. "Huh," she said. That was the entire review, one syllable, and nothing after it. But she didn't say it the way people dismiss me. She said it the way you say it when a reading comes back different than expected and you decide to run the test again. I've heard 1,000 people write me off. This was a woman filing away a data point she hadn't planned to collect. I should have gotten up then, clean exit. Bet lost, dignity mostly intact, back to the bar to hand Maddie her 20 in my usual smirk. I stayed in the chair. "What?" I said. "You quit." She tilted her head. You had the whole setup loaded, and I called it, and instead of pushing you just, put it down. Nobody puts it down. She said it slowly, like she was reading a gravity sample and didn't trust the number. Men double down. That's the whole species. You had a script and I broke it and you didn't reach for a new one. The script's useless with you, I said. I figured that out around the second sentence. Almost nobody figures it out. I'm a quick study when I'm losing. The corner of her mouth did something. Not a smile. The place a smile comes from before it decides whether you've earned it. She reached up, pulled the reading glasses out of her hair, folded them, set them on the table like she was clearing space. Then she turned the book back over. She didn't open it, she just held it, both hands now, the cracked spine facing me like she'd let me see a little more of it than she meant to. Sit up straight at least, she said. If you're going to lose a bet at my table, you can do it with posture. That's the first order anyone's given me all week I actually want to follow. Don't get comfortable. I'm still deciding whether you're interesting or just tired. Can't it be both? On a good night. She glanced at the bar, at Maddie, then back at me unbothered. She's going to think this means it worked. It didn't. You know that. I know that. For the record, I'm going to go pay her the 20 on my way out and tell her she was right. You're impossible. I'm not impossible. People just confuse being done auditioning with being cold. She said it without weight, like she'd said it 100 times to people who deserved to hear it and had run out of the energy to make it sting. There's a difference, and hardly anybody ever learns it. What's the difference? She looked at me for a long moment, and I got the feeling she was deciding whether the question was another move or an actual question. She must have decided actual, because she set the book down flat and folded her hands on top of it. Good. And then she asked me the question. The one I didn't have an answer ready for. The one that turned the whole night sideways and made me realize I'd walked in with a script and was about to leave with nothing to say. She looked right at me, steady, and she said, "So what do you actually do, Ryan Vance, when there's nobody around to be funny for?" I didn't have an answer for that, which was new. Usually I've got something, a line, a deflection, a joke that lets me leave before the room decides who I actually am. But she'd asked it plainly. What do you do when there's nobody around to be funny for? And she was looking at me like she already knew the shape of the answer and just wanted to see if I'd say it out loud. I didn't. I said, I clean the cellar mostly. She almost smiled. That's not what I asked. I know, I said. It's the best I've got tonight. She let me keep it. That was the first thing I learned about Tessa. She could see the door you were hiding behind and she wouldn't kick it in. She'd just note where it was and wait. She came back the next Thursday. I want to be clear that I did not plan for that. The bet was dead. I'd told Maddie it was dead, but Tessa worked 4/12s at the hospital, and Thursday was her first night off, and the brewery closed late, and somehow her first night off and my last hour of cleanup kept landing in the same place. That became the thing, not dates. I wouldn't have called them dates, and if you'd called them dates in front of her, she'd have raised one eyebrow until you took it back. They were closing shifts with company. She'd take the stool at the end of the bar with her cracked paperback, and I'd stack chairs and hose down the mats and rinse the fermenter, and we'd talk in the gaps. She was 36, charge nurse in the emergency room across town. She'd tell me things in this flat, unbothered voice that would have wrecked a normal person. A guy came in convinced his hand was a spider. A kid swallowed a magnet. A man held her wrist in the hallway and cried for 10 minutes about his dog. And the dog was fine, he just needed somebody to stand still. "Do you ever stop moving?" I asked her once. "In here," she said. "That's why I come." I liked that more than I let on. The idea that the loudest room in her life was quieter than mine. The brewery has a ritual at close. You pour a small taste of whatever's newest, drink it standing up, and decide if it's ready. I started leaving her a glass on the bar. Never asked. Just set it down next to the paperback and went back to the mats. The first time she picked it up, smelled it, held it to the candle, and said, "This one's angry." "It's a beer." "It's an angry beer." Somebody rushed it. I stopped hosing the mat because she was right. We'd pulled that batch 2 days early to make room in the tank. "You've done this before." "No," she said, "I just pay attention. You'd be amazed what people give away when they think you're only there for the drink." That sounds like a threat. "It's a job history." She took another sip. "Better with the next one. Don't rush the next one." I didn't rush the next one. When it came out right 3 weeks later, I gave her the first glass of that too, and she took one sip, set it down. There he is, and I felt it in my chest like she'd caught me at something. That was the pattern. She'd say 4 words and hand me back a version of myself I hadn't shown anybody. I kept trying to figure out how she did it and landed on the boring truth. She wasn't doing anything clever. She was just looking. Half the people you meet never really look at you. They wait for their turn to talk. Tessa waited for the real thing to surface, then she named it, then she let it be. She outread me every single time. I'd set up a joke, walk it right to the edge, and she'd land it before I could, dry as chalk, then go back to her book like she hadn't just taken my whole bit out from under me. I started losing on purpose. Then I started losing for real, because she was faster, and the strange thing was I didn't mind. I've spent my whole life being the funniest person in the room because if you're laughing, you're not looking too close. With her, the funniest person was already there. It freed something up. I got to just talk. "You're quieter than your reputation," she said one night. "I have a reputation?" "Maddie says you're the guy who never shuts up." "Maddie says a lot of things." Tessa turned a page. "She does. I should tell you about Maddie, because Maddie is the reason this could have gone wrong. Maddie's my best friend. Has been for 6 years, since she started tending bar here before she went back to school. She's the kind of friend who shows up with soup when you're sick and also tells your worst secret at a party for the story of it. She loves people loud and fast and a little carelessly, the way you love a game you're good at. And she'd decided, somewhere in her head, that getting me and her sister together was a project she was managing. She'd text me, "How's it going with Tess? Any progress? You two official yet?" Winking faces, like there was a scoreboard. She came in one Thursday while Tessa was at the end of the bar, leaned over the taps and stage whispered, "So is the bet still on or what?" and grinned like it was funny. Tessa didn't look up from her book, but her thumb stopped moving on the page, just stopped, held there. I said, "There's no bet, Mads." "Oh please, $20, I remember." "There's no bet." Something in my voice must have landed, because she blinked, said "Okay, weird," and went to bother the new bartender instead. Tessa's thumb started moving again. Neither of us said anything about it, but I put it away somewhere, the way you pocket a screw you find on the floor of a room you're going to have to fix later. Then I made my one real mistake with her. I read her wrong. She was guarded. I'd figured that out fast. She held herself very still, kept her answers short, never quite let the warmth reach the surface even when I could feel it there underneath, and I decided, in that stupid math men do, that the stillness meant she wasn't interested, that I was a Thursday habit, a guy with a mop and a decent sense of humor, and she was just being polite while she finished her book. So I pulled back. I stopped setting up the jokes, stopped leaving the glass, stopped leaning on the bar during the slow stretch edges. I gave her space I thought she wanted, and I told myself I was being respectful. And really I was protecting myself, because retreating first means nobody gets to leave you. She noticed inside of one shift. "You've gone somewhere," she said. "I'm right here." "No." She set the book down, closed it around her thumb. 3 Thursdays ago you'd have made a joke about that guy's spider hand. Tonight you wiped the same 6 inches of bar for a full minute and forgot my glass. I stopped wiping. "I'm not one of your setups, Ryan," she said. "Quiet, not unkind. You don't have to perform for me, and you don't get to disappear from me either. Pick a lane." That knocked the wind out of me a little. "I thought you wanted the space." "I wanted the person." She looked at me steady. "I get enough polite distance in a 12-hour shift. I came here because you didn't do that." "You're always so still," I said. I couldn't tell what you wanted. Something shifted in her face then. Not hurt exactly. Recognition. Like I'd handed her a word she'd been carrying around for years. "Still isn't the same as gone," she said. "You of all people should know the difference." I sat down across from her, actually sat. "Then tell me why." She was quiet for a while. Long enough that I thought she'd let it drop. The tap room was empty. Somebody's playlist had run out an hour ago, and neither of us had noticed the quiet until now. "I had a family that only liked me when I was calm," she said. She said it the way she said everything, flat, no drama, which somehow made it worse. "My mother was the weather," she went on. "You never knew which one you were getting. And the job of everybody in that house was to keep her steady. My sister did it by being delightful. Maddie, you've met her. She's the sun, she performs, and everyone claps, and the room turns bright. That worked for Maddie. And you?" "I did it by being fine." She turned her water glass a quarter turn. "I was the one who never needed anything. Straight A's, no drama, held it together at the funeral when everyone else fell apart. And every time I did it, they told me how easy I was, how I was never any trouble. Not you, Tessa. You I don't have to worry about." She looked up. "You learn pretty young that the love is for the performance, the calm, so you get very, very good at the performance." I didn't say anything. She'd taught me that, actually, not to rush into the gap. "I dated a man for 3 years who called me low maintenance like it was the nicest thing he could think of," she said, and I made myself smooth. I never asked for the hard things. And when I finally did ask, one time for something that mattered, he looked at me like I'd broken a contract. Like the deal was, I stay easy and in exchange he never has to actually see me. She shrugged one shoulder. So I stopped, not with him, just in general. I stopped auditioning. What does that look like? I asked. It looks like a woman reading a book at the end of a bar who doesn't laugh at things that aren't funny. A ghost of that dry smile. People call it difficult. My charts call it difficult. I've heard the word my whole life. She met my eyes. But I stopped performing calm for people who never earned it. That's all. There's a difference, and almost nobody bothers to learn it. I felt that one land somewhere I don't usually let things reach. Because I knew it. From the other side, but I knew it. She stopped performing so nobody could love the wrong version of her. I never stopped so nobody could love any version at all. Two ways of solving the exact same problem. Two people who decided a long time ago that being seen was the dangerous part. The slow night came about a week after that. Rain, the real kind, the kind that empties a taproom by 9. It was just us and the sound of it on the roof and one candle I hadn't blown out yet. She wasn't even reading. She'd left the book in her bag. That should have told me something. I did the thing I always do. I felt the quiet getting heavy and I reached for a joke to lift it. Something about the weather, some line I'd used before, I don't even remember, and I got about 4 words in. And she just looked at me. Didn't interrupt. Didn't finish it for me the way she usually did. Just looked, patient, with those steady eyes, waiting to see if I'd choose the bit over the moment one more time. I put the joke down. It was the hardest thing I'd done in years, and all I did was stop talking. I do that, I said finally, because I'm scared. She didn't move, didn't make it a big thing, just of what? Of exactly what you said. My voice came out lower than I meant it to. Of somebody actually looking. My whole thing is, I'm the funny guy, I keep it light. Everybody has a good time, and nobody stays long enough to be disappointed. Because if I let you see the real one and you leave anyway, then it's the real one you left. And I don't think I'd get up from that. The rain filled the space where she didn't answer right away. So I make the joke first, I said. I leave first. It's the same coward move you made. I just went the other direction with it. You went still so nobody could love the fake calm. I stay loud so nobody gets to the real thing at all. She was quiet. Then she reached across the bar and took the rag out of my hand. Set it down on the wood, out of my reach, like she was taking the weapon away. There, she said softly, that's the person. I looked at her, really looked, the way she'd looked at me the first night, and for once I didn't have anything to hide behind, no mop, no bit, no rehearsed line, and I didn't reach for one. Your turn was harder than mine, I said. No, she said, yours was. I've been telling that story to myself for years. You just told yours out loud for the first time. She almost smiled. I could hear it, the floor still shaking under you. It was. She wasn't wrong. We didn't kiss. I want to be honest about that, because this is where the movie would put the kiss. We just sat there in the rain quiet, two people who'd spent their whole lives armored for different reasons, and we both set the weapon down on the bar at the same time, and neither of us picked it back up. She left around midnight, pulled her coat on, no rush. At the door she turned around. Thursday, she said, not a question. Thursday, I said. And I stood there in the empty tap room with one candle still going and the rain letting up, and I felt lighter and more terrified than I had in years, both at once, the way you feel at the top of something before you find out if it holds. I should have known it wouldn't stay this simple, because there was still a screw I'd pocketed off the floor weeks ago, a $20 bill, and a careless sister who thought the whole thing was her win to claim. And Maddie had no idea what she was carrying around. She was about to say the wrong thing to the wrong person, out loud in front of Tessa. And everything the two of us had just quietly set down was going to get picked up again, hard and thrown. The thing about a pocketed screw is you forget you're carrying it until you sit down wrong. For a few weeks, though, I didn't sit down wrong. For a few weeks it was good. We started going places. Off the brewery grid, which felt like a bigger deal than it should have. The bar was safe. The bar was mine, mops and taps and a candle, home territory where I always had something to do with my hands. Out in the world I had nothing to hide behind, and neither did she, and it turned out that was the point. She took me to a diner she liked at 2 in the morning. The kind that only makes sense to people who work nights. Everyone in there had a badge or a uniform, or the 1,000-yard look of a shift that wouldn't end. Tessa ordered eggs and coffee and told me the names of the regulars without looking at them. That's Dale. He drives the airport shuttle. He's been reading the same Western for a year. How do you know that? Same page most nights. I don't think he's a fast reader. I think he just likes having somewhere to sit. I looked at Dale and his book, and then at the cracked paperback poking out of Tessa's bag. And I didn't say anything because saying it would have been a bit, and I was learning to shut up. That was the whole shape of it, small things. She let me see the small things. One night the cellar flooded a little, a hose clamp let go, nothing serious, but I was down there ankle deep at 11 with a wrench and cold water running down my sleeve, and she came down the stairs in her coat and just held the light. Didn't offer to help, didn't tell me how to do it. Held the light steady on the coupling so I could get both hands on it. My grip lipped once, her hand came down over mine on the wrench, just for a second, just enough, and we got it. Water stopped. We stood there in the wet in the dark with the one work light, and neither of us said anything for a while. That's the part I keep. Her hand steadying mine on a wrench in a flooded cellar, and a silence that didn't need me to fill it. I'd spent my whole life terrified of the quiet. Quiet is where people look at you. With her, the quiet was the good part. We could stand in it. I'd never been able to stand in it with anyone. "You're not doing the thing," she said, the stairs coming up. "What thing?" "The nervous thing. You've stopped narrating." I ran out of material. "No." She stopped on the step above me, level with my eyes for once. "You just stopped needing to." Then she went up, and I stood there dripping, feeling like she'd caught me at something good for once, instead of something I was hiding. What I didn't understand yet was that the closer we got, the more still she went. A different kind of still than the first night. This one was watchful. Like someone standing at the edge of a pool they already know is cold. I clocked it on a Sunday, her rare full day off. We'd made actual plans, a whole day, and an hour, and her phone lit up and her whole face changed. "They're short," she said, already standing. "2 nurses out. It's a mess over there." "You're off." "I know. You worked 4 days." "I know that too." She was already pulling her coat on. Then she stopped, one arm in, and looked at me, and I watched her catch herself doing it. "I don't have to go. They can cover. I just..." She trailed off. "You just what?" "If I go, I know exactly what I am for the next 12 hours. If I stay here with you, I don't." She said it flat, the way she said the hard things, but her hand was tight on the coat. "The hospital's a room where I know what I'm worth. This is a room where I'm just hoping." I didn't have a joke for that. Good thing, because it didn't want one. "Stay," I said. She looked at me a long time. "That's the scary version," she said. "You get that, right? Going is easy. Everyone needs me at the hospital, and needing me is a thing I understand. Staying means I might start needing you, and I don't do that. I got very good at not doing that." I understood it completely. It was my own thing wearing her clothes. I keep everyone at arm's length so nobody can leave me. She makes herself the one who's needed so she never has to be the one who needs. Same fear, opposite armor. Research on attachment calls it the avoidant pattern. This thing where getting close reads as danger instead of comfort, where being needed feels safe and needing back feels like stepping off a ledge. I didn't have the word for it that Sunday. I just knew I was looking at my own reflection put a coat on. "They need me a little," I said. "Badly. On a trial basis. I'll give it back." She almost laughed. She took the coat off. She stayed. We spent the whole day doing nothing. It was the best day I'd had in years. And the entire time, some small part of her was braced, and I could feel it, and I thought I understood it, and I was wrong about how much. Because I thought the danger was inside her. The old wound, the family that only loved the calm, the man who called her low maintenance like a compliment. I thought if I was patient enough, steady enough, I could outwait it. I forgot about the screw on the floor. The trouble came wearing my best friend's face. Maddie had been circling the whole time. Texting, "How's it going with Tess? You two a thing yet?" I kept giving her nothing, which for Maddie is like waving a flag. She decided this was her win, her project, her little sister finally dating a nice guy because Maddie made it happen. Maddie set it up. Maddie put $20 on a bar and lit the fuse, and she wanted her credit. I should have shut it down harder. I told her there was no bet. I told her twice. But I told her the way you tell someone a thing you're a little ashamed of, hoping they'll let it drop, instead of the way you tell someone something that will detonate if they touch it. I underplayed it. I thought if I acted like it was nothing, it would become nothing. It was not nothing. It was a Thursday. Of course it was a Thursday. Tessa was at the end of the bar with the paperback off a brutal run of shifts, that particular flatness she got when she'd seen too much and slept too little. I was closing. It was warm and slow and good, the three of us in the same room for once, and I remember actually thinking that things had settled, that the danger had passed. Maddie came in loud. She'd had a couple somewhere else first. She had that shine on her, the fast, careless glitter she gets, the one that's fun at a party and a loaded gun anywhere else. She hugged her sister. She grabbed a stool. She was on about a guy she was seeing, and then a friend she was setting up, and then, because Maddie's whole engine runs on being the person who arranges other people, she landed exactly where I'd been praying she wouldn't. Okay, but this, she said, gesturing between me and Tessa with her whole arm, delighted with herself. This is my best work. You two, God. You know I did this, right? Tess, you know I did this. Maddie, I said. $20. She was laughing. I put $20 on the bar and I told him, I said, get my sister on one date. She needs to remember she's a person. And look at you two now. Best 20 I ever spent. You're welcome, both of you. You're welcome. The room went quiet, the way a room goes quiet when a glass breaks somewhere you can't see. Tessa didn't move. Her thumb was on the page the way it always was, holding her place. It stopped. I watched it stop, and then very slowly she closed the book. All the way, no thumb saving her spot this time. She wasn't coming back to the page. A date, Tessa said. Even. To get you out of the house. Maddie was still grinning, still not feeling it, the way you don't feel the ground go until you're already falling. Ryan's the funny one. I figured if anyone could make you crack a smile, and he did. See, I'm never wrong about people. Tessa looked at me. I have replayed that look more times than I can count. It wasn't anger. Anger I could have worked with. Anger means you still matter enough to be worth the heat. This was the other thing. This was a woman watching a number come back on a chart that confirmed exactly what she'd braced for her whole life, and going still, so still, the armor sliding back down over the person like it had never left. So it was a bet, she said. To me, quiet, the whole thing, from the start. Tessa. The night you sat down. The thing you did where you put your hands on the table so I could see them. Her voice didn't rise. It just went further away. That was the $20. That was you making sure she didn't lose her money. No. Tessa, no, that's not. The bet died first night I told her, I paid her. I told you it was a dare and I sat down anyway because I meant it. You told me. Careful. The way she moved when a patient was crashing and she couldn't let her hands shake. And she just told me you're welcome for it. So one of you is lying to me about what I was, and I've had a long week and I'm too tired to figure out which. Maddie finally got it. The grin fell off her face like something dropped from a shelf. Wait, Tess? No, that came out wrong. I didn't mean it was still a bet, I meant. It started as a joke, but then it got real. I was bragging. I'm an idiot. It's not what it sounds like. It's exactly what it sounds like. Tessa's voice was so calm it scared me. You looked at me and thought, my sad sister, my project, let me get the funny guy to make her feel like a person for 4 minutes. Like I'm a room you decorate. She picked up her bag. The paperback went in. You've been doing it since I was 19, Maddie. I keep telling you I'm not a fixer-upper, and here I am, the one time I let my guard down, and it turns out I was the punchline the whole time. Just like I always am. I just forgot to remember it. Tessa, that's not. I was the one who bet. That's on me, not on him. He was decent. He was actually decent to you. I ruined it. That's mine. I know it's yours. Tessa was already at the door. She turned, and this was the part that took the wind out of me. Because she wasn't crying, she wasn't shaking, she just looked tired in that specific bottomless way. But he let me believe it wasn't. He knew there was a bet, and he knew I'd hate it, and he sat there every Thursday and never once told me the origin story. He let me find out from you, drunk laughing. She looked at me. You of all people should get why that lands the way it lands. You told me you leave first so nobody can leave you. Well, turns out I was right to keep the door where it was. Then she was gone. The bell over the door did its stupid, cheerful thing. Maddie stood there, with both hands over her mouth, and I stood there behind the bar with a rag in my hand, and the exact feeling of the floor still shaking under me, except this time it wasn't from finally telling the truth. It was from getting caught in the one truth I hadn't told. Because she was right about the piece that mattered. The bet died that first night. That part was clean. But I knew it existed, and I knew what the word bet would do to a woman whose whole life had taught her she was somebody's project. And I never once got out ahead of it. I told myself I was protecting the thing we had. Really, I was doing my oldest trick. If you don't say the hard part out loud, maybe it isn't true. Stay light. Stay moving. Never stand still long enough for the disappointing thing to get looked at. I'd built my whole life on that move, and it had just cost me the one person I'd stopped performing for. Maddie sat down on a stool, hard. She looked younger than I'd ever seen her. I did that, she said. I actually did that. Yeah. I thought it was cute. The bet. I thought I was helping. Her voice cracked in a way Maddie's voice does not crack. She's my sister. I spent my whole life thinking she's the strong one who doesn't need anybody, so I kept poking at her. I kept trying to loosen her up like she was a jar lid. She pressed the heels of her hands into her eyes. She's not a jar lid. She's a person who's been telling me for 15 years to stop treating her like a thing to fix, and I never heard it. I thought loving somebody loud was the same as seeing them. It's not even close. That was the first true thing I'd ever heard Maddie say about her sister. It only took a catastrophe to get it out of her. "I'll fix it," she said. "I'll call her. I'll explain it was me, all me, you didn't do anything." "Don't." I set the rag down. "Not tonight, and not that way. You calling to explain is you managing it again. That's the whole problem, you keep arranging her." I heard myself say it and realized I was describing myself too. She doesn't need to be managed out of this. She needs somebody to just tell her the truth and let her do whatever she wants with it. Maddie looked at me, "Then you tell her." And there it was. The choice sitting on the bar like a $20 bill. Because I knew how to win her back. God help me, I'm good at it. I could go to her with the charm turned all the way up, spin the story so the bet was nothing, minimize it, make the joke that makes the hard thing small, get her laughing before she's supposed to be done with me. That's my whole toolkit. Get the laugh, stay in motion, never let anyone stand still long enough to be disappointed. I've never once failed to talk my way back into a room I got thrown out of. But she wasn't a room. She was the first person who'd looked at me and named the real one, and she'd walked out because I'd shown her, one more time, that when it counted I'd choose the light version over the true one. If I charmed my way back in, I'd win, and I'd prove her exactly right about me forever. The other option was the one I've spent 33 years running from. Go to her with nothing. No bit, no angle, no line rehearsed in my head before I said it out loud. Tell her the whole ugly truth, that there was a bet, that it died that first night, but I knew it existed, and I stayed quiet because I was scared. That I'm a coward who leads with jokes so nobody gets close enough to leave. Hand her all of it, the disappointing thing, fully lit, and ask for nothing back. Let her look as long as she wants, and risk that she looks, and sees, and leaves anyway. And it's the real me she leaves this time, the one I've kept in the dark my entire life specifically, so this could never happen. Maddie was waiting. Outside the rain had started, the real kind again, like the weather only knew one trick with us. I picked up my keys. I didn't know yet which one I was going to do. That's the honest part I have to tell you. Standing there with the rag down and the door still swinging, and my best friend crying on a stool, I did not know if I was going to go win Tessa back or go tell her the truth, and those were not the same thing, and for the first time in my life I understood they'd never been the same thing, and I just always picked winning, because it was the one that didn't require me to stand still and be seen. The keys were cold in my hand. The wound was as wide open as it had ever been, hers and mine both. And somewhere across town a woman was walking home in the rain, certain all over again that she'd been a punchline. And the only thing that could prove her wrong was the exact thing I'd never once in my life had the guts to do. I didn't chase her that night. That was the first honest thing I did. The old me would have. The old me would have driven to her building in the rain, buzzed every apartment, delivered some speech I'd rehearsed on the way over, charmed my way back in, made her laugh so she'd forget she was hurt. That's what I do. I make the room warm so nobody looks too close at me. But she wasn't a room. She was a person who'd been made into a punchline one too many times, and the last thing she needed was another performance. So I let her walk home in the rain. I sat in the cellar with the tanks humming and I thought about what she deserved not to be won. One is a thing you do to strangers. She deserved the truth, laid flat on the table with nothing attached to it, no ask, no angle. Just the facts of what I'd done and what I'd hidden, handed over like a receipt. I texted her once, just once. When you're ready to hear the whole thing, I'll tell it. No jokes, no talking you out of anything. You pick the time and place. If the answer is never, I'll live with that too. She didn't answer for 2 days. 2 days is a long time when you've spent your whole life filling silences so nobody can leave. I wanted to send, a funny one, to break the tension. My thumb hovered over the phone about 40 times. I put it down every time. For once in my life I let a silence just sit there and mean something. Ted noticed. He's the brewer, a quiet guy who's worked beside me for 6 years and never once asked me a personal question. On the second night he watched me stare at the phone for a while, then he said, "You're not making a joke." "No." "Something's wrong with you." He said it like a diagnosis, wiped his hands and went back to the mashed. That was the whole conversation. It rattled me more than a lecture would have. If Ted could tell I'd gone quiet, then I'd been loud my entire life, and I'd never once noticed the volume. On the third day, Maddie showed up at the brewery. She looked terrible. Which, for Maddie, meant her hair was in a real bun, instead of an ironic one, and she hadn't put on the lipstick she treats like armor. She sat at the end of the bar where her sister used to read, and she didn't order anything. "I told her," she said. I stopped wiping the glass in my hand. Told her what? Everything. That the bet was mine. that I set the whole thing up like it was some cute little game, that I've been treating her like a fixer-upper my entire adult life. She pressed her palms flat on the bar. I went over there. I made her let me in, and I said all of it. Maddie. No, let me finish. Her voice cracked on the second word. You know what she said to me? She said, "You've been trying to make me into someone people find easy since we were kids, and I've never once needed you to." I set the glass down. "And she's right," Maddie said. "I thought I was helping. I thought if I could just get her to loosen up, laugh more, stop scaring people off, then people would finally see how great she is. But I was the one who couldn't see her. I kept trying to hand her to people, like a dare." She looked up at me, and her eyes were wet in a way I'd never seen on her. "People aren't dares, Ryan. I made my own sister into a dare and handed her to my best friend, and I called it love." I came around the bar and sat next to her. I didn't have a bit for this. For the first time in 15 years of friendship, I didn't reach for one. "You apologize to her like you mean it?" I asked. "Yeah. Not the funny kind. The kind where you don't get to feel better after. The kind where she said, accepted, not erased." Maddie let out a wet laugh. She got that phrase from somewhere. It sounded rehearsed, devastating and rehearsed. That sounded exactly like Tessa. It made my chest ache in a way I didn't have a name for. "For what it's worth," Maddie said, standing, pulling her coat around her, "I'm not fixed this one. I'm not setting anything up. Whatever happens with you two, happens because of you two." She stopped at the door. "But she's not sleeping, Ryan. I know my sister, and a woman who's already decided you're a liar doesn't lie awake over you." Then she left. Tessa texted me that night, 9 words. "Tomorrow the diner on 5th, noon. Bring nothing. Bring nothing." She knew me well enough to say it. I got there 11 minutes early and sat in the back booth with my hands wrapped around a coffee I wasn't drinking. She came in at exactly noon out of her scrubs in a gray sweater, and she slid into the seat across from me without a word. She had the paperback with her, the one with the cracked spine, the one she'd been reading the first night I ever saw her, back when I thought I was clever and she already knew I wasn't. She set it on the table between us like a chaperone. "Okay," she said, "talk." So I did. I told her about Maddie slapping the 20 on the bar. I told her about the bet, the whole stupid shape of it, the dare to get the difficult sister on one date. I didn't soften it. I didn't dress it up as a meet-cute. I called it what it was. A careless thing two people did to a third person who never agreed to be a game. "I approached you with a line," I said. "You already know that. You clocked it in about 4 seconds, and you didn't even have the decency to look surprised." The corner of her mouth moved. She fought it down. "Here's the part I never told you." I turned my coffee cup in a slow circle. "The bet died that first night. It was dead the second you asked me a real question, and I had no script for it. But I kept a piece of the game anyway. Not the bet. The other thing." "What other thing?" "The deflection. Every time you got close, I'd make a joke. Every time you asked me something true, I'd hand you something funny instead. I've been doing it my whole life. I turn myself into a bit so nobody stays long enough to be disappointed by the actual guy. You noticed. You called it out weeks ago, and I let you think it was charm." She didn't say anything. She let me sit in it. She's good at that. "It wasn't charm," I said. "It was armor. And I wore it with you longer than I should have, because being seen by someone who sees as clearly as you do is the most terrifying thing I've ever signed up for." The diner clattered around us. Somebody's plates, somebody's kid, the coffee machine coughing. "I'm not telling you this to win you back," I said. "I don't think you can win a person. I think that was the whole rotten idea from the start. I'm telling you because you walked home in the rain thinking you were a punchline, and you weren't. You were the only true thing in the whole mess. And you deserve to hear that from the one person who owed it to you straight." I ran out of words then, which never happens. "That's it," I said. "That's the whole thing. No jokes. I don't want anything back. I just wanted you to have it." She looked at me for a long time. Then she picked up the paperback, and she turned it over in her hands, and she said, "You know what this is?" I shook my head. "It's the book my mother gave me the year everyone in my family decided I was the difficult one. I was 14. I'd stopped smiling on command at family dinners, stopped laughing at the uncle who wasn't funny. And my mother pulled me aside and said, 'You're making things hard for everyone.'" Tessa ran her thumb along the cracked spine. "This book was inside the same bag as that sentence. I've read it maybe 40 times, and never because it's good. It was the one thing in that house that didn't want me to be easier than I am." I didn't breathe. "I stopped performing at 14, she said, "and people have been calling me difficult ever since. My family, my exes, the charge nurse before me who wrote in my review that I lacked warmth." She almost smiled. "I run a trauma bay. Warmth is not the job. No, I said quietly, it isn't. You want to know the funny thing? She turned the cup in front of her, mirroring me without meaning to. The night your sister's setup went wrong, I almost didn't come red at that brewery at all. I'd had a shift where I lost a kid, 19 years old, and I came in and sat in the corner because I needed to be somewhere no one would ask me to smile about it. Her jaw tightened for half a second, then let go. And a man walked up with a rehearsed line, and I thought, of course tonight. I didn't know that. I know you didn't. That's the point. You didn't know a single thing about me, and you sat down anyway, and then you kept sitting down, for weeks. She looked at me. I had you filed under one more man who wanted the version of me that's fun at parties, and you were, for 4 seconds, and then you stopped, and you never once tried to make me easier. Not even now, when it would have been so simple to spin this. She set the book down. You told me the ugly version, she said, when the pretty version was right there. Do you understand how rare that is? For someone to hand me the truth when a lie would have worked better. I'm done handing you anything but the truth, I said. It's the only thing you ever wanted from me. She was quiet again. Then she reached across the table, past the book, and she took my hand, the way she does it in the ER, I'd bet. Steady, certain. A grip that tells the scared person the floor is still there. I didn't come back to win you either, she said. I came back because you stopped playing. That's the only reason. I don't reward apologies. I reward people who change how they treat me and then keep changing. Her thumb moved once across my knuckles. You stopped performing. So did I. That's the whole thing, Ryan. That's all I ever needed anyone to do. I looked down at her hand on mine. For the record, I said, and my voice came out rougher than I meant, I don't have a joke for this. I know, she said. That's how I know it's real. That was 2 years ago. She kept the paperback. It lives on the shelf by our door now, next to the blue bowl of candy she inexplicably keeps stocked and never eats. I read it, finally. She was right. It isn't good. I told her so. She's obvious said. That was never the point, and went back to her crossword. We don't have a story with a big finish. There's no airport, no rain-soaked declaration, even though the universe kept offering me rain and I kept declining. Our biggest romantic gesture is that on Thursdays, when her shift ends at 3 in the morning, I'm awake with the ginger tea she pretends she doesn't want and the light on in the kitchen so she doesn't come home to a dark apartment. That's it. That's the whole grand gesture. A light left on. She noticed it the first Thursday I did it. Stood in the doorway with her keys still in her hand and looked at the mug and the lamp and me, half asleep on the couch pretending I wasn't waiting up. She didn't say thank you. Tessa doesn't perform gratitude any more than she performs anything else. She just crossed the room, sat down next to me, and put her cold feet on my leg like she'd been doing it for years. That was the thank you. I understood it perfectly. Maddie's her sister's maid of honor, when we get around to it. She stopped setting people up entirely. She told me last month, I used to think matching people was a talent. Turns out I was just moving them around like they were mine to move. She's dating a guy now, quiet one. She says he's boring, and she means it as the highest compliment she's ever paid a human being. Here's what I figured out. Standing in a cellar with the tanks humming, on the night I decided not to chase a woman who deserved better than a chase. A woman gets called difficult when she stops performing for people who never earned the show in the first place. That's usually all it is. She's not cold, she's not cruel, she's just done auditioning. And the tragedy is how many good ones walk right past her because they wanted the easy version, the version that laughs on command, the version that shrinks to fit the room. I almost did it too. I walked up to her with a bet in my pocket, ready to be one more person who wanted her smaller. The best thing I ever did was put the game down and hand her the truth instead. Because you can't win a person, you can only see them. And when you see someone clearly, all the way down to the parts they stopped hiding for anybody, and they let you stay anyway, that's worth more than any prize you could win. Being seen honestly beats being won, every single time. She stopped performing at 14. It took her 22 years to meet someone who liked her better for it. I'm just glad it was me. So let me ask you this. What would you have done if your best friend bet you couldn't get the woman everyone called difficult to say yes, and then you met her, and she turned out to be the most honest person in the room? Would you have played the game or put it down? Have you ever been the person somebody called difficult when the truth was you just stopped performing? Tell me your story in the comments. I read everyone. And if this one stayed with you, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.